PMI Live. It is 1500 hours in the UK. It is the final Friday of the month, which of course means it's time for PMI Live, episode 115. Talking of numbers, we are very aware we've got a lot of registrations today. In fact, we've broken all records in the all 115 episodes of PMI Live with our registrations today. So welcome all. We're really hoping for a lot of interaction, as the title suggests. We are live, we are here. Wave your hands just to prove it, folks. You're not AI. There we go. Although, Anthony, you did a good job of looking like an avatar then. Anyway, we are live, we are here. Please do interact with us. You are take benefit of the fact that you can pose your questions, you can pose challenges, observations. These things really come alive when you help us out and interact with us. So please do join us. I can see I'm getting some reports of no sound coming on. I'm hoping my fellow presenters can hear me. They must have do because they raised my hands. Hopefully that's not a widespread problem. One of the things we do know this afternoon is that Microsoft has a Europe-wide, continent of Europe-wide, email issue across its M365 cloud. So if any of your colleagues can't join because they haven't received the emails, then do let them know that's the reason, and they can catch us on the live streams, which you'll find on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, and the other one, which is, what's the other one? The other one. Anyway, LinkedIn, YouTube, and the other one, Facebook. Thank you.
Facebook.
Thank you. Yes.
That's the one.
Getting distracted by reading the chat. So talking of which, thanks for coming alive on there. It's really great to hear from you all. I'm going to do some introductions very shortly. But before we do that, one thing you will have noticed on the introduction screen that today we have launched a brand new series of public courses on the subject of AI, which we'll be talking more about later. I can see one of you has already booked from the beginning of that course. It flagged up as we were starting from the beginning of the call. This is the first time it's been in the public domain, so I know it's one of you guys. Great to have you with us. We are going to be releasing a discount code exclusively for people that are here joining us today, and we'll share that in the chat at the end of the session today. So if you have booked, we'll refund that for you. Don't worry about it. So without further ado, or more from me, or ad-libbing from me, let's face it, on a Friday afternoon, it's the last thing anyone wants. Anthony, would you like to introduce yourself, and then I'll go over to Dennis after that.
Yeah, sure. So hello everyone, I'm Anthony Richardson, Senior Consultant for PMI. Been with the organisation for a number of years now, even though I still feel quite new. So recent work, what am I working on? A couple of things. As ever, I've been doing a lot of coaching with clients on green belt, yellow belt projects, which is always really rewarding, really interesting, seeing their problems, their organisations. But equally as interesting has been the work I have been doing with Dennis and some others from within our organisation. I have been as I was saying earlier, the Robin to Dennis's Batman, or maybe the Alfred. I haven't decided yet. In terms of kind of getting ahead of this AI wave, both within our system, but even more importantly within our clients, helping them to get better outcomes. And that's where some of this AI for leaders, AI for practitioners thinking that we're going to talk about later has been coming from. So really been enjoying that.
Excellent. Dennis, let's come over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Lovely to see so many of you on this call today. And so I've got a number of lovely clients at the moment, one of which I'm working with their executive teams right now, where the CEO had the wisdom to drive them through Greenbelt training, executive team through Greenbelt, which means, of course, they can walk the talk. So they're trying it out and walk the talk, which we're going to talk about later as well on this. I've got another client, which is, again, in the marine business where I'm working with. And finally, this week, Anthony and myself at our two-day all-hands meeting within PMI, we delivered, both of us separately, because of the size of us now, a masterclass in Copilot. And some of the content of that you'll see also today. We'll share it with you today.
Okay, so Anthony, before I ask you to take us through what we're going to cover today, let me just do some positioning on this. Why this topic? Where does it come from for our audience? So first things first, we all of the topics for PMI Live come from Voice of the Customer surveys that we send out to all training delegates across our apprenticeship and our training and our commercial training business. Everyone that attends a PMI Live also gets a VOC survey. And on there, the final question common across all those surveys is, what topics would you like us to cover in an upcoming PMI Live? So couple that with our client insight that we get from people like Anthony and Dennis, who work with clients around the world on their performance challenges every day. We generate quite a lot of data. So this one has a degree of irony, and this particular webinar today is was generated by AI analysis of all that data. So from all of those surveys, we took the free text and we got it to analyze it and suggest topics that we might address based on previous content we've covered, but critically about those based on those responses that you give. And so today was born the AI ready practitioner, and thinking about the next 12 months. And we take these challenges very seriously, that we generate this content and this original thought leadership that these guys have been working on to come up with. Dennis made reference to our staff conference earlier this week, where specifically we were training our own people in the arts of good prompt, some of which Dennis will touch on later on. But why do we think this is important for you, the improvement practitioner? And it's simply this. In PMI's method and in our opinion, we see AI being absolutely front and center in the hands of the continuous improvement, process improvement practitioners. Not tech, not IT, not any other random department, but with you guys. You guys are the people that know process. You know the difference between change and improvement. And therefore we see it absolutely central to the future of the role of the improvement practitioner going forward to be leading, championing, deploying, refining, improving AI as it's used in organizations, without which the world is changing so fast that without which your organizations will fail to thrive. I'm going out with all the big bold statements today. This is, I've heard people call it a fourth, fifth, sixth industrial revolution, depending on how far back you go in history. It is here. However, as ever in PMI, we come to it from a practical point of view. What does it mean for you? What does it mean today? How are you going to impact and implement this stuff to get change and improvement and benefits for your organization today? And that's what Anthony's going to cover. So segue in there. I think there
Wonderful.
was. Let's take us through what you're going to cover today then.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So based on this need that we've identified from you, we think we need to cover basically three things. First, we need to say, well, what do we mean by AI ready? What could that mean to the individual? What could that mean to the organization? And of course, it's worth me really being clear here that this is such a quickly moving, quickly developing situation in terms of this AI revolution that Rich, you mentioned, that this is our theory. This is our framework based on our experience internally and with our clients. But, as Rich said, please, if you're watching, give us that feedback, give us your comments on what being AI ready maybe means to you. What have you seen? The second piece then is, once we've said what we mean by AI ready, well, can we break that down into a series of skills, behaviors? What would they be? How can we build them? Why do they matter? And then finally, we'll share with you a self-assessment framework that we've put together. We won't talk about it a lot today, but we will absolutely send you a link so that you can reflect, go through that assessment and begin a learning journey.
Excellent. Sounds great.
Cool.
Just while you're flipping slides there, Anthony, we have activated the AI translation engine on the call, and you may be able to see that little icon on Anthony's screen at the moment. Someone's decided that Yorkshire needs translating there, Anthony, into another language. So lots of languages available. You'll find that in your Zoom control panel.
Excellent. So I think a great place to start is with a little bit of interactivity. It would be really interesting, given that the size of today's audience, to just ask this open question of how often are you using AI in your daily work practice? So is it never? Is it just occasionally, rarely, maybe only when you're nudged? Is it a few times a week? Or is it every day, maybe many times a day, a lot every day? It'd be really interesting to know where the audience is, so that, again, we can kind of tune our discussion as we go through those 3 topics I mentioned earlier, and try and really tailor it for your needs.
This is the keenest audience we've ever known here. So Neil's about to launch the poll now, folks, but thanks for putting it in the chat. We can see those coming through. Neil, would you like to launch the poll? There we go. It's on screen now. I'm going to ask you to submit your vote. That way, if you have already put it in the chat, please do pop it in the poll. That'd be great. And then we can collate those, because despite those degrees in economics, I don't think I could add those columns and the responses up so quickly. Okay, so I can see responses flying in now. Thank you very much. Just ticking through those. So where are we coming out? Let's see what's evolving. Okay, interesting. So I'll give you a few more moments on that. This is really useful. And one of the questions we'd like you to think about whilst we're just waiting for the polls to answer is, if you are using AI solutions, what solutions are you using? Where? In what way? And what challenges are you having? Let us know in the polls. It'd be really interesting to get a grasp with this audience as to the different types of angles and challenges that people are dealing with. Okay, let's close that out at that point. What have we got showing here then? Okay, so in the middle we've got in the lead we've got the middle response of a few times a week by the look of things, but closely followed, in fact exactly jointly followed, by occasionally and a lot every day, then a little every day. So if you are falling into any of those categories, let us know. What are you using? What's it doing for you? What challenges are you having? It'd be great to feature that in the presentation. Anthony, Dennis, what you expected?
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing here, is almost nobody's saying never. So it looks like the revolution has certainly hit the majority. I mean, there will always be those who, maybe are a bit out of the loop, or maybe they work in a role where it's not as obvious where it can be used. But across the rest of it, yeah, I would actually say fairly evenly split here. And I don't think I'm that surprised. Dennis, how do you feel?
I always have the ambition that people say a little or a lot every day. So seeing occasional, a few times a week, the majority, the bulk thing there, it's like, okay, the purpose of this webinar is exactly that, isn't it? How do we shift them from occasional or a few times down to a little every day or a lot?
Yeah, it's interesting, and let's just put a known caveat on this. We have quite a big client base in both the defence and health sectors, where there is, rightly so, still a lot of reluctance and a lot of research going on into how best to use AI solutions in those environments. I know in many areas in the NHS, for example, particularly with large language models, which we're going to be talking about today, it's not allowed at all because of the difficulty of ensuring accuracy with patient health. And then in many defence businesses, they're also restricting it for a variety of security reasons. But obviously, this is a journey we're on. Okay, great. That's really interesting. Thanks for your insights, and thank you all for sharing your solutions. See those piling in as well. So we've got real dominance of the big tools like Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, I can see popping up repeatedly. Very, very interesting. We'll have a read through those as we go through.
Okay. I think best place to start then. Just some super quick definitions so we're all speaking the same language. AI, artificial intelligence, it shouldn't be a surprise to too many people, but we're talking about human machines that are doing human-like tasks. You may hear Dennis, Rich, myself refer to these as a model, an AI model. We may use those somewhat interchangeably. That's nothing to be alarmed by. We're just talking about the intelligence itself. Surrounding that are a few other terms. Today in particular, we're going to concentrate on generative artificial intelligence because that's where the real value for the improvement practitioner lies here in 2025. And therefore, you may hear us talk about LLMs, large language models. And again, there we're simply talking about these intelligences that can produce things, be it music, be it video, be it images, whatever it might be, or text. Few other terms when we talk about machine learning. And we talk about training data. Machine learning is that mechanism by which these AI models are created. And when we talk about the training data, we're talking about that content collateral that was used to train these AI intelligences, these intelligences. So again, those will be text from the internet, from other places, images, whatever it might be. So those are the key terms. The big one as well being prompts. So prompts are the commands which we give to these intelligences. So again, hopefully there's nothing surprising, scary in here, but if any of these words were confusing to you, hopefully this sets the stage for you to engage a little bit better with the content today. So with that out the way, a question here, Dennis, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. It is indeed. And I want to go back to what Rich said in his introduction. Until a few years ago, even all I wanted to be, in effect, was the best possible improvement practitioner. And I was learning every day those skills. I mean, RPA, robotic process automation, came on stream, but I was really owned by the IT people because of the complexities around the language needed to program this. Now we're in a new situation where every organization we talk to says, hey, we now want to have the best AI solutions in our sector because we believe they can give us a competitive advantage. Back to Richard's point, big risk. If that introduction into your organizations, be it incubators or otherwise, is technology-led or IT-led, there's a big risk of the lack of systemic thinking or risks to do with what is it that we're actually agentizing? What are we actually now converting? Which workflows from human labor into a digital solution? So this is now the opportunity because I believe that our roles now will massively evolve and change in the next 1 to 5 years. And what it will become is we will all be IA incorporated improvement practitioners. It becomes our digital colleague, our digital friend. And therefore, we're going to talk a lot around the psychology of this and on the impact of that in today's session.
Yeah, I think, Dennis, that's the reason why I think the position we're coming at this from. How do we get ready to be that person, to be that friend? How do you get ready to be anyone's friend? I think a big theme we'll see today is very similar to that human question as ever, unless the technology question. And it's a really interesting question, I think. What does being AI ready mean? And for Dennis and I, as we discussed this and as we were preparing for this, we really told each other this tale of two colleagues. And I think this is the best place to start. If you've ever worked with PMI, you'll have heard us talk about how important psychology is, and that when there's some outcome we don't like, when there's some process, we really need to look below the surface and dig into, well, how are people feeling? What are the motivations? What's going on inside that may be linked to some of these outcomes? And in this AI age, as we think about our colleagues, as we think about the organization, you can almost split people into a couple of groups. There's some people who, as we've been through these last few years with some of these generative AI solutions, feel like they're being forced into a kind of a survival mode. Right now, I will just point something out here. I'm deliberately articulating two extremes. Okay, so that's not saying everyone is either person A or person B. Of course, in reality, we all exist on a nice broad spectrum in between these 2 points. But the best way to understand the spectrum is to examine it from either end. And this first end is this colleague who is just surviving. But they could be talking to someone else in their organization, and actually they're going, this person's doing so well with AI. They're innovating, they're thriving, they're building all these cool agents and doing all these cool things. Why am I not getting there? Is what's going on? And if we think about it, certainly from Dennis and I's experience, for me, when these tools first came out, for whatever reason, I was super excited, super open-minded. Could be just things about how I've grown up, who I am. It doesn't really matter. It's not a good and a bad conversation. It's just something to recognize. But what that meant was, through some experimentation, I quickly built up, and others in a similar situation were able to build up this view of the tools to use, how to use them, when to use them. I don't really think anything I've done used technical knowledge. The well it sprung from for me was the emotional well. And we might say, again, at the extreme other end of the spectrum, perhaps when we first saw ChatGPT and it started speaking to us in a eerily human way, we felt suspicious. We felt, well, impatient. Well, okay, then if you're a human, just do my job for me. What do you mean you can't and you got it wrong? Ooh, I'm feeling nervous. And they start to tell stories more about the tools to avoid. And this links to this survival mode. So how can we break this down then into something like an AI mindset? What is that recipe for success? Well, first of all, we think about what we feel. We think about this idea of patience. And again, I said this earlier, interested to hear feedback on other elements that you may observe that might contribute to this mindset. But certainly starting with this idea of patience, this will manifest in our behaviors practically as back and forth dialogue, right? We ask the AI, it gives us a response. Good, bad, in the middle. Let's ask again. Let's get into a conversation. Let's try something new. Let's change the scope. All of that must be underpinned by that feeling of patience. And then, yeah, there's this other element that, we're still working on defining a lot of these, but this element of open-minded intuition, this open-mindedness, open-minded to the fact that actually maybe I can be more precise and elaborate with my prompts. Maybe there's a lot more detail in there. And then if that doesn't work, again, with that patience, we're going back and refining. Confidence as well. My observation, again, it's on a spectrum, but my observation is I do see a number of people, and there's visible lack of confidence. There's this, again, said it on the previous slide as nervousness. But if we turn that into confidence, well, that gives us the psychological safety to play around with the scope of what we're doing. Try something different, bigger, smaller. Let's see. But that, to be done safely, of course, requires healthy skepticism. Okay, so the AI oh, sorry, Rich, you've got your hand up.
No, you carry on. I'll put the point. It's just a comment on something you're saying.
Okay. Yeah, so the skepticism idea is healthy skepticism. It manifests in our behavior as attention. So, paying attention, not being lost in the shiny toy, and really paying careful attention, not just to the output we're getting and whether there's a hallucination, but to whether this is actually helping us achieve our overall goal, coming back to that 3-question model.
Yeah, and I find this really interesting, which is what I was going to comment on, because the experience I've had in many of the clients I've been working with so far, it's about 2 things. 1, the tech, and 2, the licenses. How much is it going to cost? Who's got a license? Where are the licenses? None of this stuff, which it's becoming increasingly apparent, is absolutely essential to make sure that you get ROI, that your people know how to use it, that you are aware and they're developing this mindset. And for me, this is such a powerful concept that goes beyond the solution. But then I liken it to any other improvement tool, be it a statistical tool or whatever, you name it. It's the same thing. It's the same concept. Yet as humans, we have a habit of seeing something new and rarely relating it to things we already know. And know how to approach them, and we know effective deployment of improvement tools requires a change mindset. So it's fascinating to see, as I am doing, people coming at AI from different angle.
Absolutely. I think as well the interesting thing is that if you think about some of these behaviors, getting into the back and forth dialogue, playing around with scope, paying firm attention, the extent to which we're able to demonstrate these, of course, is cyclical, because the behaviors are driving the outcomes and the experiences we get. Do we get a good outcome, a bad outcome from the AI, from our process? And that in turn can reinforce or change how we feel, which can reinforce or change how we behave. And so to your point, Rich, the question is, where do we start? Do we start with technology? Do we start with some deployment of licenses and worrying about that? Or, well, we need to start by modifying the behaviors so that we are ready for the right outcomes to drive the right feeling. So in other words, it's like the phrase, faking it till you make it. You have to act your way to a new way of thinking, not think your way to a new way of acting. We need to learn something, which means encounters in the real world, experiences and outcomes that are better, driven by these new behaviors, and that will start to move the needle in terms of how we feel. And it will be like a snowball rolling down a hill, gathering momentum.
Thanks, Anthony. And just to pick up a point that's been made in the chat, which I think is really important. It's not in today's webinar, but we've got a concept on the roadmap for socio, political, and economic and environmental concerns and issues around AI, and it's so important. I didn't just want that to go past with just a thumbs up from me on there. We will be picking that up, just not today.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, funnily enough, last week I was working on some of the content for specifically that, and one of the facts that stood out in my mind was that I think it was a single medium complexity prompt in one of the major LLMs requires enough energy to entirely charge your phone from dead. It's like, how many times do you charge your phone in a week? How many times do you ask ChatGPT something vaguely meaty? Yeah. So yeah, agree.
Great.
So that's not the only thing that it takes to be AI ready. It's not just about understanding our feelings and getting into a positive reinforcement cycle. It's also about our ability to design. We are in danger right now as civilizations, individuals, organizations, of what I call building a robot to drive a steam train. Okay, so I'll just quickly explain what I mean by that. You've got a steam train. Your arms hurt from all the shoveling of the coal. Shoveling's not fun. I don't want to do that anymore. My bright idea is to build a human-sized, human-shaped, human intelligence robot and ask it to shovel my coal for me. Now, we instinctively wouldn't do that. We know we wouldn't do that because this is a deliberately absurd example. Instead, what we would do is we would abstract our problem and we'd think, well, this shoveling business is all about generating energy, and well, there are many ways of generating energy, many different approaches to that. And so actually, the solution isn't to build a robot to drive a steam train. Sure, there will be automation, but the end solution will look very different. Dennis, I know you're super passionate about this concept of design thinking, aren't you?
Absolutely. I mean, there's this whole concept of we don't have to force ourselves to come up with a new solution through perseverance, through inspiration, which was an old way of thinking about who's creative or not. This model here, this 4-step model, is just the key, the token, the prompt to coming up with new innovative solutions which are applicable in your own world. So specific problem that you have to generic problem through abstraction, you find a generic solution out there in the wider world, which then you adapt back to a specific solution. I'm sure all of us on this call here today have done it through YouTube, trying to fix something in your house. Find somebody else who's got a similar problem and a similar machine or device, and how did they fix it? Now I know how to fix mine.
Yeah. So I wanted to give a real example from PMI. So obviously we're a knowledge sharing organization, and part of what we do, a big part of what we do is courses, delivering courses, learning interventions. And part of that is this need for exams, right? This thing where you have to sit in a room sometimes, or maybe you're at home alone, and you have to answer a bunch of questions, and you need to get a certain amount of them right. And, you know, we do a lot of that. That then requires scoring. There's all sorts of things that need to happen around that. Now, we could just think about in PMI, well, should we get AI to do some of this, to write exam questions, test exam, whatever it might be, just building the robot to drive the steam train. But if we abstract it and we go, well, actually, the job here is to test people's understanding. So now that we live in this AI world where people are working with AI, should we be threatened by the fact that, you know, someone doing an exam could use AI to answer a question? Well, probably not. That wouldn't be logical, because in the same way that, yes, you should know your times tables, but we should acknowledge that calculators exist and that you will be living in that world. You should hope to. It would be an awful thing that would happen to stop us from using that, wouldn't it? Okay. So then what might that look like as an AI solution? Well, it's not about getting AI to write exams for us or check exams or invigilate exams. Maybe we create a whole bunch of AI-powered simulated stakeholders using generative AI, and we put our participants into something more interactive where it's not multiple choice. It's about dealing with these stakeholders, because that's what we're testing for, right? In some areas. So it's things like that. Not building the robot to drive the steam train. Having this design thinking will be crucial for the AI practitioner, I think. So where does this lead? It leads to this, our view at the moment of what we mean by an AI-ready improvement practitioner. We mean that person who already has the improvement skill set, right? So they're well versed in the system of profound knowledge, and they seek to apply it to generate real improvements. Crucially, they understand what their customer needs, right? There's no point touching AI unless we've got that view of what value is. And also, they are really good, and for me, this is really at the heart of what we mean by an improvement practitioner. It's a person who's really good at effectively navigating cause and effects. If we've got those things, as well as our soft skills around change management and influencing, and we layer on this AI mindset, there's only one further set of skills that we need, which is the practical skills, back to those behaviors. Can we do good prompt? How are our prompt engineering skills? How can we tailor and customize AIs? Do we know how to do that? There's loads of super easy options available to all of us. And again, feature awareness. Beyond that tailoring, what else can AI do? Where could I even use it? And when should I use it? And of course, building and managing the digital workforce in terms of AI agents, which we won't touch on today, but if you're interested, we did cover that in a previous PMI Live, and it forms part of our AI practitioner offering as well. So, should we start with building some better prompts, Dennis? Are you gonna take us through it?
I believe that's a good place to start, Anthony.
Let's do it.
So, if you think about how we converse with each other, it's all about language. And language is therefore the key to understanding each other as human beings, but also the key to interacting with the large language models. And there's three different ranges here, from a conversational style to a structured prompt and also a technical prompt. Now, the question, of course, is how does the AI decide to interpret that prompt? And depending on what type of prompt I give it, it may give itself the decision with a lot of freedom to interpret or very constrained interpretation. And therefore, how does it choose then to answer after it's done the interpretation from a broader answer to a precise or exact answer? So if you think about these three dimensions here, I'm now going to show you 4 different qualities of prompts. So first of all, on the left bottom corner, we've got your AI model prompt, what's called an open prompt, a single question, a sentence, a short paragraph. Then, of course, if you work within native environments, for example, within the Office 365 environment or M365 environment now, you have also the opportunity for in-app prompts, which again, you have a context, which is called a context prompt, very specific to that specific application. The next level up, we're going to get now a bit more advanced. And the reason for this advancement is that we realize that we have some frustration with our prompting and we can't get quite the right answer. So we need to skill ourselves in precision of language. So the next step up from that is called ROCOS, which is a set of 6 steps. And I'll show them in a minute what these 6 steps are. This therefore gives the AI a more precise way of interpreting and therefore a more precise way of answering. That leads us then to the very last one, at least as I understand today, which is the technical prompt, where we use some kind of syntax, some kind of codification, which is very much similar to a programming language, where now the AI model is very familiar with it because that's how it was programmed. So it's, I recognize this way of writing because that's what I was taught. I now know exactly what you mean, and I will not deviate from what you're asking me. So on the next few slides, I'll give you some more examples around these. So first of all, the open and context prompt. The first thing, therefore, and this is where we came from, Google, give it 3 words: Six Sigma, improvement, agile. And it says, oh, these keywords come as index on these pages. I think that's what you want to look at. But of course, there's no understanding of intent or adaptation linked to your role, clarification questions, or follow-up. So if you now move on to the open one, it may be as well, I've got a improvement project here that was submitted to me. Give me the executive summary, key findings, risks, issues, and next steps, or In our we have our internal agent, which is one of our pages that we have. What are the key steps to undertake in the measure phase? And then when we go to the context prompt, it may well be, and Rich, I believe you've done the first one here only a week ago.
The translation.
The translation, but also the one above it.
Oh yes, indeed. Yeah. Sorry, I was reading the translation.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed, which is fascinating to do, and it's working with data in a way that we've never been able to do before, and it actually worked, which is this is representative of how fast this technology is changing.
So, but these are all single sentence prompts or single paragraph prompts. If we move on from that, we go to the next one, which is a structured prompt. And as it says there, make prompts boringly specific. Now, the model here on the left-hand side, this is your friend, Rocos. Role, objective, context, constraints, output, stop. And the last one, tone, and I'll touch on that. So first of all, in the role, you're going to tell out what you wanted to do. I want you to be my greenbelt coach. In the objective, it's a single line statement about what you wanted to do. Guide me in completing a clear and accurate SciPoc for my project. Give it some context. It has to be an improvement early on, and I got 45 minutes time to do it. Now you give some constraints, rules and boundaries, define what must be included or not. So keep language simple, avoid jargon, make sure the supplier and the customer be focused only on the primary, etc. Then you think about the output. I want it to be shown in this template that I've uploaded to you already, and it needs to be back in this format. And finally, the stop. I want you to stop your thinking once you've satisfied all my earlier mentioned criteria. The last one, tone, is optional. So for example, our company corporate language is British English. So you may have American English in your company, and therefore that's how you write it. Now, the thing on the right-hand side, interestingly, I didn't write this full out. I gave it a simple paragraph and then I said to it, give me now the Rocos version of this. So the large language model translated my simple paragraph into this, says, is that what you meant? So all I now have to do through multiple iterations is say, I didn't mean 5 or 7 entries, I meant 8 entries, for example. So that's Rocos.
And it's tough, this stuff, Dennis. Both of these for with Google having been around for over 20 years, where search prompts and finding knowledge and getting responses has been boiled down to a few phrases, as fewer words as possible. This is tough. It's a tough shift in behavior. It's a tough shift in thinking. But if you truly are going to get the maximum out, and to be fair, just to signpost on this, many of the tools are putting these in as prompts and will ask you to confirm these things as you do to guide you through. And clearly that will help going forward, and that will evolve and get more sophisticated, more intuitive. But this is a really helpful thinking model, I find, even if I don't cover all of the elements when I am prompting, to think about what framework am I looking to get a response on.
Indeed. And therefore, I'm going to go one step further. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I don't want to scare people. But this is what now a technical prompt would look like, which uses, in this case, a language called JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. Don't need to know that. Once again, all I did is I put in my really simple prompt. I need some statistical analysis using descriptive statistics. Give me the basics. That's all I wrote. I said, but now give it back to me using JSON. It then returned to me the thing on the right-hand side. Oh, I think you want to talk about mean, standard deviation, min and max. Anything else? Yes. I want visualization or no visualization. So I just tweaked the language in this description on the right-hand side, and it executed it cleanly. Now, where will this come to its own? I believe right now, wherever we as practitioners have to do statistical analysis, where we choose not to use one of the proprietary software packages, but we're trying to use AI, for example, Data Analyst and Copilot to do this. But don't panic. Like I said, you do not need to be a writer of technical code. All you need to be able to do is, I want you to follow this prompt, which may also come from our Process Manager Plus or other materials which are on our website. Say, follow this, because I trust that to be true. That's what I want you to apply to this data.
Fantastic.
Now, but this of course leads us now, Anthony, to the next challenge. If we now know how to prompt, how do we now make sure that we get this now to become a digital colleague of us that we actually like working with?
Yeah, exactly. You know, someone says to you, okay, now I've taught you how to speak and speak English. Now you are ready to make friends. Well, hang on. No, there's a few things to consider, like getting to know the person. So let's just go back to the 3-question model again of what we're trying to achieve. Right. So we're trying to generate value more effectively and efficiently. We're in our organization. We're doing some process with some outcome we're looking for, and we want to get there for our process customer using AI to do it more effectively, more efficiently. So that goal immediately implies 2 supplemental goals, 2 goals which sit beneath it. We need a model, an AI, that understands us, just like we need people who understand us, but we also need a model that's familiar with our context. So I add these 2 blue blocks together to say, this is what differentiates a person from being a random person from the street and a colleague. That's the difference. Even if you don't work with that colleague very often, there's a different conversation you can have with a colleague about some process that you want to deal with in your organization than you could with a stranger, even from a different business in the same sector. Okay, it's that familiarity of us and context. This then sneaks in some new supplemental goals. If we want a model that understands us, we need to understand ourselves, and we need to know where to find data about ourselves to show the model. Furthermore, if we want a model familiar with our context, then our organization is going to need this trusted model inside the organization, right? Not something that's held at arm's length and we all treat it like an unexploded nuclear warhead, but actually something that we're beginning to trust within guardrails and with safety limits put in place. And we also need, therefore, the technical capability to set all of that up. We can shortcut all of this to say the fundamental need is the need to build rapport. And so, Dennis, again, this is something I know you're super passionate about, this theory of building rapport and this transactional analysis.
So the psychology of working with another entity, it applies the same. And in the last few years, working with the less mature models of AI, the frustration you get. So let's think about when we work with a human, we have in transactional analysis terms, a stimulus and a response. AI is exactly the same. We provide a prompt and it provides a response. The question, however, is how do we make sure that response that it gives us is tailored to how we like to be spoken to? For example, in English, not in double Dutch. How do we make sure it uses a similar style to me? You know, informal, casual, direct, whatever your preferred style is. So we want to treat the AI as an adult to adult, but I have found myself, especially in the past, to be very much critical parent talking to the naughty child because yet again, it failed to understand what I wanted. This therefore means we actually have to go through what we've called personal contracting. Ask and offer. How will we work together to make our job successful as the human labor and the digital labor?
Yeah. And it really surprises me, Dennis, that most people I talk to, even those who are using AI quite a lot, they're in complete surprise when I say, did you know there's a place you can click in most AIs to go and just do some contracting? And it will then sit there forevermore. So we thought in this webinar, it would be really useful to share that with you, just at the high level. Again, we'll cover this in more detail elsewhere. So let's talk about that first way, that the one I just teased. There's this idea across the various AI tools of there being global instructions. Okay, what do we mean by that? We mean something that looks like this. We mean a box where we can go in and we can say, right, I want you, and this is real. This is mine from my Copilot. I'm happy to share it. I know there's not a huge amount in here, but the big thing for me is I get really annoyed if I ask Copilot something simple, and I just get this wall of lovely, beautifully intentioned drivel telling me how wonderful my idea was, and then somewhere buried in there may be my answer. So I've just given it this contracting instruction. And Dennis, I know you've been super into this whole idea of contracting. What have you found so far?
So absolutely. So and I'll tell you how I went about it, which is again the top tip for our audience here today. I asked it, analyze the emails from the last 3 months. How did I write my written response to my colleagues and also external to clients? What style did I use? How did I sign? What was my signature? How did I phrase things? Learn from that, and that's how I would like you to talk to me. It's effectively a digital copy of how I speak.
Scary.
On the assumption, how I speak, I like to be spoken to back. And I've gone quite extensive in it. So in Copilot, you can go beyond 1,500 characters. In ChatGPT, it's at the moment limited to 1,500 characters. So be aware how much stuff you put into this, which also, of course, Anthony, has an efficiency challenge, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's a trade-off with this. And it's, again, we explore this a lot in AI for practitioners, but all AIs have something called a context window. So every time you ask AI something, the power of its response is proportionate to how good its response is proportionate to how big of a context window it has. Like how many ideas can it juggle at once just as an intelligence? And obviously these are getting bigger with the newer models. But as you're filling up these global instructions or other types of memory, that window's being filled up with all of that context. And therefore, if you're asking for something super complex, it might not have enough space left to digest all of that. Again, I'm never going to stop saying it, Rich. I apologize. Doesn't that sound like a person? Exactly how we work. So that's global instructions. Dennis hinted at it as well, but this idea of a memory that can be built up as we go along. Again, this is from one of the services I use. And what you're seeing here is an almost full now, but incrementally built memory. So this is where, and it's a feature you can turn on or off. You can say, do you know what? As you're talking to me, if you hear me say something, you think, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to just remember that about Anthony. Yeah, you can do that, Copilot, and keep a list. Just make sure I can see that list and I can go in and delete something if I don't like it. And that's what the little bin icon is.
And the key phrase therefore to remember is, what I do is, if it does something I don't like, I say update memory, full stop. And this is what I do want you to do or don't want you to do. And it says, thanks, memory updated. And it appears on this list as a new entry.
Yeah. Okay.
Brilliant response. Brilliant responses there, Anthony. Thank you for sharing. Kept me entertained.
I was just looking at the memories of me there, reading them, going, wait, what sort of a person am I? Well, the more you learn. So I won't cover this too much. Dennis covered this, right? And it's a beautiful example, Dennis. It's super creative. I loved it, Dennis, of connecting it with data. And in Dennis's example, it was emails. Go look at my emails. Right. And again, this is why we talked earlier about this need for this to be something that's in the organization, something that's integrated, something that's trusted. But again, wow, what a powerful thing to do in terms of getting better results from the AI. And it, of course, we would have to include the idea of self-reflection. And you go, well, why is that on here, Anthony? Those all felt technical, and you've just told me to self-reflect. Well, yes, but again, if I break this down, this is the same advice as we'd give you to build rapport with a human. We'd say, have some contracting with them up front. Pay attention to them, try and learn things about them, actually observe and think about them. Pay attention, look at that data, what information do you have about them? Take it seriously. And also think about yourself and how are you going to work with that person? Dennis used that phrase, ask and offer, all part of contracting. And of course, the PDSA model, which unfortunately the colors do conflict a little bit there. But yeah, the PDSA model, meaning that this is not a once and done thing. This is something we should be returning to and evolving over time.
Yeah. And this is what I find. I find the double loop learning. This is what I asked you first time. How did you work on this with me? It didn't quite work. Let's reflect. And I can ask the AI the same. Can you reflect on the response you just gave to me? Why do you think it was wrong? And that helps them to build understanding and therefore helps to build rapport.
Yeah. So we finish with our final skill set, which is feature awareness. And we're only going to cover one today. As you can see, 8 minutes left. We've just got time to surface one. But in terms of what do we mean by this? This is, I think, the thing most people wrestle with, and that's why we've deliberately left it to last, because this should come last. First, it's the mindset, the behaviors, the getting started with the AI, and then we can start to think about features. We're all broadly aware, I think, at this point about that these models can do things like, make images, digest some email and summarize it for us, do some translation, record and transcribe a meeting. But I think a lot of the population right now, a lot of our colleagues are looking at these drop downs, say, in the tools, and they're seeing things like think longer, research, web search, canvas. What am I supposed to click? And when? And what does it do? And if it didn't go wrong, was that me? Was it the AI? Was it a combination? It can seem quite scary. So we're just going to pick on one of these, this idea of thinking longer or reasoning, just to give you an example of what these features could be. So I'm just going to quickly flash up a series of questions. And all I need you to do as an observer here is pay attention to what your brain does in order to answer the question. Okay, so what is 2 + 2? And you go 4. And I point out, you didn't do maths, did you? Show me your column multiplicator. No, you didn't do that. You just answered. What is the capital of France? And you go, Paris.
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. Ooh, hallucinating model there, Dennis. But you answer very quickly. This is something familiar to you. It's been within your training data as a human model, and therefore you can provide it very quickly. However, if I ask most people, and I say most people, there are some oddballs out there who may have a slightly different way of approaching this. But if I ask most people, they would recognize that, what is A if 2A + 8 = 20? It doesn't belong in the same bucket as these other questions. Most of us could agree, I see a difference here. And that difference is that if we pay attention to what happens in our minds, it's something like this. Our minds go, okay, so I've got 8 and I've got these 2 A's. Okay, first let's get rid of the 8 and it's 20 in total. Right, so that leaves me with 12. And I need to split that 12 between these 2 A's equally. That would give me 6. Okay, right, I'm going to tell Anthony the answer is 6. What's the difference there? Well, there's 2 differences. It took a longer amount of time and you went through a set of steps. What you did in your head is you divided your brain into 2 internal people, a student and a teacher. And then you went through a process where the student decided what step to do next in the logic chain. The teacher approved that step sounds right. The student then does that step, so maybe the dividing 12 by 2, and then the teacher checks the answers, provides the feedback, all inside your own brain. And once those 2 personas within you are aligned, they shake hands, your mouth opens, and an answer emerges, and hopefully it's right. That's precisely what the AI is now being rigged to do when we use that drop down to activate reasoning mode or think longer mode. We're forcing the AI not just to respond quickly to us, but to actually go through this psychological process and, quite interestingly, do it in real time. And often you can click it and see that internal monologue playing out in real time, which can be really useful to understand not just what you're getting, but why you're getting it. Okay, so again, it takes longer and it costs more. And I'm actually really happy with whoever, gold star for whoever pointed out the environmental impact earlier. Because this is exactly why it's good to have that in mind, because this is an even higher impact than charging a phone. Okay, so we do need to be careful with the use of this too. So that covers one of the features, reasoning, but there are a whole bunch of others. Dennis, I know you've got some favorites across some of these tools like Copilot, Gemini. What's your favorite tool feature combo quickly?
Well, one I'll talk about very quickly is the Notebook LM, which is a Google feature. So if you have any content that is complex and long, you stick in a Notebook LM. It has now multiple modes of then giving it back to you. It started off with 2 people talking to each other around it. It can also now do video overviews, narrated video summaries, AI visuals, mind maps, and the rest. So if anybody here is studying for something, Notebook LM, that's my top tip for today.
Yeah. Powerful when you consider everything's a learning journey. In some way, we're all always studying for something. So yeah, I totally agree. It's a really cool tool, is that. And of course, how to keep updated. We definitely in our PMI lives, we're keeping things up to date, and as things are advancing, we're sharing that. But you've really got to pay attention, I think, Dennis, would you agree, to just social media feeds, particularly like LinkedIn, Instagram, I would say, and Anthropic in particular are a really good source of news, certainly from a technical point of view.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in summary, the AI practitioner.
So, being AI ready, have an open mind, patient, and be skeptical, healthy skeptical, so there's no hallucinations bypassing you. Know and push the art of the possible. So stretch your relationship with the AI model. Say, that's not what I meant. I want you to be better. And then back to you, I need to be better as well. So become highly competent in the core skills that your own company AI solution offers, but keep an eye open for all the others out there, because there's multiple different people, AI models, different behavior, etc. AI is more capable than just answering single questions. Workflow automation will be the one where ROI will feature the highest. So it becomes a truly digital colleague. And finally, to be able to do the above, keep honing your practice as an improvement practitioner in all the skills as you have them today to make sure hallucinations don't bypass you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, guys. So thank you very much for that content. Couple of things before we close, and then for anyone that's interested, we're going to stay on for an extra 10 minutes at the end of the session until 10 past, just to go through some of the Q&As that we've been handled. So I'm aware that some people will have sessions that they need to get to next, but just before you go, let's have a look at what I mentioned up at the beginning. So we have launched a brand new learning pathway for AI. 3 constituent parts to it at the moment: AI Foundations, AI for Leaders, AI for Practitioners, which is a 2-day boot camp. So they are available now. They're available as live public courses through our public schedule. If you have attended today, you can use this discount code, and we don't often do this, but we thought, look at all these people in this session, put that discount code in, and you will get an astounding, I had a rush of generosity to the head this morning, 25% off. So go ahead and use those codes. They're available now. First ones are coming up in September, which Anthony will be leading. They are absolutely fantastic. So do join in, do get registering. If you'd like to chat through any of those, do let us know. So what is coming up next month, last day, Friday of the month, of course, 1500 times UK hours, is this question: is a lack of clarity holding you back as we think about the challenge? Better definitions equals better results. Okay, so all that remains is to thank everyone for staying with us. We will be staying on for another 10 minutes for anyone that wants to stay to look at some of these fantastic Q&As that we have had, and we'll have a quick look through now. Okay, so I got some key themes, guys, just moving into the Q&A session. That environmental point came up early doors, really interesting, and one that we've already got, as I mentioned, on the roadmap. And there's more around that, isn't there? And it's rightly so that this, we talk about efficient and effective processes. The resource utilization of AI is critically important, isn't it? And link that to a further point that somebody made: are we falling into a trap of the vendors getting us all hooked on this stuff, and then they'll increase the price exponentially? How interesting. What do you make of those two then, Dennis?
Let me answer the second one first. There's always a risk, of course, when we have a dependency. There's a risk attached to it. So this comes back to resilience. I've seen this in the last few weeks, especially when the US comes on stream. Sometimes these models grind to a halt. This was in the early days when they weren't upscaled yet to take care of the rest of the world that had been awake for a few hours longer. So I do see a need for us to be resilient when an AI model can't do our job. It still means, therefore, we still need human intelligence, human skills. We still need standardized processes. So for me, where do these models come in? It's about taking away the noise in the everyday. It's not that I can't take care of the noise in the everyday. The hygiene stuff I have to do every day is part of my job. But if I can give that outsourced to the AI, I can go and get on with the value add, the new, to create more.
Okay.
I'm not sure that's answering the question, but
Well, yeah, as ever with this stuff, though, it's important we come at it from multiple angles. So, you know, yeah, I'm relaxed about that, to be honest. Anthony, thinking about that environmental, I know these are very different topics, but thinking about the environmental issue, and also thinking about this issue of cost and dependency on the technology.
Yeah, so there's two things environmentally. Well, actually, no, there's three things environmentally: water, power, and land use. I guess are the three. Very quickly, what we're talking about here is every time you do one of these queries, as I mentioned earlier, it uses a lot of power. So I gave that quote. I actually misspoke slightly. I've just double checked. So I wanted to fact check myself here. So it's an AI generated image is equivalent to charging your phone. So, you know, I've done this before. I think, oh, I've got a funny thing I could share with my friend group. I'm going to, oh, no, that's not quite right. And before I know it, I've probably generated.
And another.
Yeah. And I kind of look back at it and I think, oh, is that reckless and irresponsible? I mean, it was funny, but was it reckless? It feels reckless.
Always, Anthony, always.
Yeah, but it feels super reckless. And I think that, so there's a silver lining to some of this, which is that, as ever, this is gonna and already is driving innovation and investment in the areas of power and data center, better cooling, more efficient cooling. Nobody wants to throw all the water away or burn all of the fuel and or have none of the energy, right? We all want the civilization to continue to function. So I think in the long term, it's probably a net good thing, because it's driving a good need and it's helping us to our good outcomes. But certainly in this near to medium term, I personally would like it if more people were a bit more appreciative of this. I think it is super important. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. So let me give you a quick summary of my take on the cost, because it's one of the things, you know, once upon a time I was trained as an economist, so sometimes I think about this stuff. It's fair, in my view, I think AI is rapidly becoming a utility. In the next few years we will see it be considered as a utility, and it will be regulated in a similar way to electricity markets, you name it, gas markets, whatever. And I think part of that may come price control. However, what has happened over the years is a pretty good market forces have controlled that. Can't rely on it endlessly. So you think about some of the words around you know, office licensing and some of the pricing. You've got an operating system that the entire world's PCs run pretty much through either Microsoft Office or Microsoft Windows, and or both. And you know, you could accuse those organizations that provide those solutions of exploiting costs, but generally the threat of competition, the threat of regulation, and organizations like the EU have done a pretty good job at over the years of stamping on some of that stuff. But it is an obvious threat, and as the growth that's been exponential growth that's been seen over the last few years starts to dry up, where do you turn? Price increases. So, you know, it's it won't be it's not inconceivable by any stretch of imagination. Okay, moving on to another question that intrigued me when I saw it come out. It was about someone that was supporting their digital team, and right now every answer seems to be AI, and the expectations that AI can fix every problem regardless of what it is. I thought that was quite interesting. Want to be interested in your perspective on those, both of you? Dennis?
Can I just share the screen here?
Sure.
If that works. What am I sharing? I'm sharing the wrong thing, but you can see it. Let me just zoom in on this. I know this is not elegant, but it's this modeling on the right-hand side. Standardize, maintain, improve are still critical for everyday processes. Only once we standardized, maintained, and improved our processes, only then agentize. So don't agentize a non-standardized process. I think that's the key message.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge though, isn't it? But I'm wondering how different that challenge is to the challenge that improvement teams have always faced, which is you know, the suggestion scheme, the suggestion box that bulges. There are often not data-based theories for improvement, and often more than the organization can cope with, and go unresponded and cause disappointment when they're not responded to. I wonder, that's an interesting one, but difficult position to be in when is it all problems looking like nails, or is it all tools looking like hammers? I'm not sure. It's one of those.
Yeah, it's very similar to 10 years ago well, all the projects are just about automating everything, and it seems like the evolution of that. To your point, Rich, is it the same thing? One way of looking at it, I think, is yes, it is, but unfortunately, this might actually work, but in a bad way. Because these things are capable enough that, yes, if you have some inbox over there and you want some digital person to just read it and start replying to people and broadly tell them the right thing, yeah, you could probably do that. But it might still be the wrong answer. Going back to that building a robot to drive a steam train. And I think that's my other worry. There's the part Dennis said, I completely agree. And then on top of that, there's the wider conceptual rabbit hole or banana skin of just, yeah, you could just automate that. And then, but how's that moved you on?
Well, yes, yeah, exactly. And you raise a good point with automation, because I think it was the same person who put a comment in about AI being confused for automation and automation being confused for AI. And intriguingly, in fact, a lot out of this one, same response about KPIs being used. X amount of AI projects should be executed over the next 12 months. Good grief, that's a dangerous position to end up in.
However, it does drive.
Sorry, go ahead.
However, it does drive back to Anthony's earlier point. Do something. It doesn't matter what you do, but be prepared not to get any ROI on it.
Oh yeah, it's the arbitrary target there, though, Dennis. That's the issue of the concern. Do X number. It's Anthony. You referenced it multiple times throughout the presentation. The 3-question model. And how do we know, what are we trying to accomplish? How do we know a change will be an improvement before moving on to question 3? What changes can we make, therefore that will result in improvement? Just do that with some of these AI solutions, and you will be an AI potential projects, and you'll be a long way along that curve. And I always said that about automation as well, and we put it in a lot of our training and consulting materials to think about that. Okay, any final thoughts from you guys in the last 50 seconds? I know you want to go on for the rest of the afternoon, Dennis. I can see it in your face.
We say final 50 minutes, yeah.
This feels too short. I think for me, the biggest insight, and hopefully it came across today, it's about the psychological relationship between us as humans and the digital label, the digital person in this case.
Okay, we've just had a question in live in this session. How do we ensure the people don't lose their flair or creativity relying on their own experience and knowledge when faced with a question and challenge? I think you're touching on that. Anthony, last response from you on that question, please.
Yes. We have a conference coming up around performance improvement in an AI-driven world, and I think this gets at the idea of AI-driven. What does that mean? Are you picturing in the driving seat there's a robot, and then asleep in the back there's you with your discarded food wrappers around you, or whatever that might look like? You've had a nice meal and you've fallen asleep. Or do you mean you're in the driving seat, smiling away, surrounded by teams of robots that are making this the best car it could possibly be, and they took all of that instruction from you, and you're always guiding them towards new targets? We believe in the second, but we see a lot of people aiming for the first, and I think that's all I'll say on the matter.
Which was prophetic by Isaac Asimov, God knows how many years ago, when he exactly described those two scenarios. It's now alive.
So on that note, thank you both. Thank you everyone for attending. Thanks for sticking around for the Q&A sessions, rather impromptu session I decided to put in. Great to have you with us. Thanks for your interaction. It's our absolute pleasure and privilege to be able to deliver these things for you. Please keep the suggestions coming. Attend the conference. Come to see Anthony in action in these courses. It'd be great to have you with us. Have a great weekend when you get there. Cheers,
Thanks,
folks.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.